know you would like to some kind of way extract something out of this bottle, all right, that's not there. It's not there. You all speculate and create things, and then you want people to respond to it. So you can ask the bottle, but don't ask me.
Hello, and welcome to all of you out there in podcast land. My name is Clint Childers, and across from me is the Georgia Peach himself, Mitch Davis.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to the podcast. We're excited about week 2.
Yeah, and you are listening to Ask the Bottle, an SEC fan cast. And yeah, Mitch, how does it feel to be a Georgia Bulldog after week 2?
It feels pretty good.
Yeah, it feels pretty good, I bet, and it feels pretty awful to be a hog after week 2, like a barbecued, slathered up hog. That's what I am right now.
Well, it definitely, it was a rough week for the Hogs. It was a good week for the Bulldogs, but it was a pretty close one. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm feeling good, but I'm not feeling incredible.
All right. Well, before we get into all that, make sure and always write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com.
Always
Always
write to us.
Always write to us. Yeah, follow us on Twitter at askthebottle. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud, which, as always, is hopefully where you're listening to us right now.
Woo!
Well, as we've alluded to, pretty exciting week 2. I think the big games definitely delivered on excitement.
Absolutely. Very exciting.
Yeah, it was good. I think it beat week 1 for me.
Oh, yeah.
There was just a higher saturation of good games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's drop into those games. We're going to talk about games around the nation before we hit the SEC. Oklahoma and Ohio State played in the shoe. This game was excellent.
No joke.
Lincoln Riley is a good coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley definitely stepped up, obviously in Bob Stoops' wake. Oklahoma beats Ohio State 31-16, mostly on the back of Baker Mayfield. He went crazy in Columbus.
No joke.
Yeah, 27 of 35 for 386 yards. In the second half, he was 16 of 17 for 228 of those yards, scored 3 touchdowns. That's pretty good. Both defenses played pretty well, but the story is definitely offensive efficiency. Oklahoma racked up 490 yards of total offense, and Ohio State struggled to accumulate 350. So there's the story. And J.T. Barrett did not look great either. He was 19 of 35 for 183 yards, and he threw a pick. That's not great.
Not great.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking loss for Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes, who are now 1-1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was nice to see Oklahoma pull out a big game. I mean, they've been good. Baker Mayfield's been good, but they just haven't. They lost the bowl game last year, right? Didn't they, to Houston?
Yeah, they did.
And we just seen them lose some big games. I think Lincoln Riley probably has something to do with that.
Well, they did. It wasn't a bowl game, but they lost a early game last year.
Early
Houston,
game,
right? It was just like an early. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, it's just good to see them win against a really good team.
Yeah, it is, and it's just like you said, Lincoln Riley. It's good to that's huge confidence builder for the program. No kidding.
No joke.
They're gonna fall. Ohio State falls to number 8 in the AP poll this week from number 2. So
they'll live.
They'll be all right. Yeah, a lot of salt in Columbus, but they'll be all right. Louisville and North Carolina played. Louisville beats North Carolina in Chapel Hill 47-35. Lamar Jackson is incredible at football. There's no doubt about that. He was 25 for 39 for 393 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was responsible for 525 yards of offense by himself.
Whew!
That's pretty unreal.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, UNC kept up with Louisville's passing game, but their run game was nothing, man. Just 17 total yards for the Tar Heels on the ground. That's not going to cut it.
No.
At all. And it's really not a good look for them, especially after Andre Smith of that defense did some trash talking to the media, saying they're going to do everything. They're going to stop everything Lamar Jackson tries to do. Y'all didn't stop nothing.
Did not happen.
Did not happen at all. So definitely gotta iron that out for them. So Louisville's looking just as impressive as they did last year. Definitely good after that Purdue game last week. For them. Stanford and USC played. USC beat Stanford 42-24. USC led the whole time in this game. They always seemed like they were in control. They had 623 yards of total offense. Stanford gets 342 yards. That's not really a contest.
No,
all on the back of Sam Darnold. He was 21 of 26 for 316 yards and 4 touchdowns.
2 picks.
Yeah, he threw 2 picks.
Still pulled it out.
He still pulled a QB rating of 95.
That's crazy.
That's pretty good for throwing 2 picks. Got a car alarm going off. I don't know if that's mine.
I don't know.
I don't know whose that is.
I'm going to go take a look.
Okay, we're going to stop here for a second. All right, and we're back. Sorry about the
car alarm.
car alarm. But that's what happens.
Oh yeah.
In podcast land,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes you gotta take breaks. Anyways, where were we? Oh, Stanford and USC.
Right.
The running backs for USC also look amazing. Stephen Carr and Ronald Jones II, they combined for 235 yards on 34 carries.
Dang.
They got a good quarterback. They got good running backs, good receivers. They're pretty high-powered offense, and they're going to look to continue their top 5 season.
USC coming back.
Yeah,
finally.
Clay Helton is getting it done, man.
Yeah. One did want to say I was being an idiot about Oklahoma. They won the Sugar Bowl last year. I don't even know what I was thinking. They beat Auburn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was thinking that Oklahoma Houston game was like an early.
It felt
game in the
was
season.
just so hype at the time.
It felt
I
like
guess
a
that's
bowl
why
game.
I felt
Yeah.
like it was super hype.
Well, we
but
fact check ourselves on this podcast
in real time.
in real time, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this game just briefly.
Barn burner.
Yeah, Boise State and Washington State. Washington State pulls out an overtime win, 47-44 over the Broncos. I don't really have much to say about this other than it was a wild fourth quarter. Some crazy mistakes. We got a big D lineman scoop and score. We got 2 terrible shovel passes that were both intercepted. Got a punt that hit somebody in the back of the head. It was like so wild, and it goes into multiple overtimes. You just owe it to yourself as a college football fan to go look up highlights of this game.
Definitely.
You do. You will not be disappointed at all.
Well, I guess we're at that point where we get to hear your thoughts on Arkansas.
Yeah, I just want to go ahead and get this out of the way so that I don't have to worry about this for the rest of the time that we're talking, just because now this is not Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Tuesday. So I've had some time to kind of steam and kind of cook on it. Just like the big old sad boy hog that I am, and kind of calm myself down. I was pretty irate at the time, but now I can kind of control myself and talk about it. I think as a rational human being.
Your texts were fire on Saturday.
Yeah,
pretty funny.
Yeah, well, I've watched this game twice, and it's just. This team, okay, first of all, let me just get to it. TCU beats Arkansas at home, season opener at home, 28-7. And this team will perennially be a 6 or 7 win team if something doesn't change. And the reason that we'll always be middle of the road is because we have a middle of the road coach. It's time to admit that. And I'm speaking to all my fellow Arkansas fans, friends, family, everybody. If you continue to support Brett Bielema as head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, you are okay with 6 or 7 wins a year on a good year, like ceiling year. I began to say he wasn't the guy after the Mizzou game last year, and most of y'all told me that I was jumping to conclusions. Well, this isn't year one or two anymore. Okay, these are his recruits. This is his game plan, and in front of a sellout home opener, this is what he gives us. And so it's time to move on, in my mind, from Brett Bielema. In his tenure at Arkansas, he's done nothing but run his mouth, and then he gets absolutely smacked on the field where it counts. He's 26 of 27, or he's 26 and 27 at Arkansas. That's unacceptable. That's sub 500.
Can't do that.
That's unacceptable. And I think we were so shell-shocked by the whole Bobby Petrino thing and going 3-9 that the second we moved to like 7 wins, we feel pretty good, and reasonably so. Going from 3-9 to 7-6 is marked improvement. But now it's 3 years later, after 3 mediocre seasons with no growth, and a 4th middle-of-the-road year is not going to sit well with these fans, and that's perfectly acceptable. So as a fan, I'm just tired of the mediocrity. And with Jeff Long as AD, I bet we'll get a couple more years of this mediocre Bielema team, so just strap in for sadness. And to top it all off, after the game, he threw Cole Hedlund, Bielema did, under the bus, the kicker, right? Cole Hedlund. He singled him out during a post-game interview. It's not his fault. It's your fault. You put him on the field. You recruited him. You knew better. He should have never put him in that situation. And we'll get to that. Sorry, I just dropped that in there. We'll get to that in a second. And I barely care enough to give you any stats on this game. But since this is a football podcast and you owe it as we owe you that as fans. Here we go. Austin Allen went 9 of 23 for 138 yards and 1 touchdown. That's garbage. That's garbage numbers. The run game sucked. Team total was 129 yards, and David Williams, the third-string running back from South Carolina last year, led the team in rushing. That's garbage. Offensive line couldn't block for the run. They couldn't pass protect. They couldn't do anything. That's garbage. The wide receivers were so bad, all TCU had to do was play man-to-man, and they couldn't get open. That's so garbage. And the defense actually played pretty well. I got to give all the credit in the world to them. They played for 3.5 quarters, but they were so worn out since they couldn't get off the field because of that garbage offense. And honestly, TCU wasn't playing that well either. They made tons of mistakes. They gave Arkansas plenty of opportunities to win the game, but they just couldn't capitalize. The very first possession of the game, Arkansas goes out. They have a veteran receiver drop a pass. They have a run that goes nowhere, and they have a 3-man rush getting to the queue. A 3-man rush gets to Austin Allen and forces a fumble. That is absolutely awful. Arkansas is a team that talks all day long about we're physical, this and that, physicality, we'll wear you down. And you get within the 5-yard line. You run 3 plays that go nowhere, and then you miss a field goal. Like, I don't know if I'm more angry at Cole Hedlund for sucking at field goal kicking, or for Bielema for putting there in the first place, or for not being able to recruit a better kicker than that. This team is a complete hot mess in year 5. It's year 5, and it's a hot mess. You have a third-year kicker missing chip shot field goals. You have a true freshman walk-on starting on the offensive line in the SEC? How is that even possible? That's your best guy? You have a senior quarterback completing less than 30% of his passes, and you have a run game getting beat by a Big 12 defense with only one front 7 guy over 300 pounds. What do you think is going to happen when they play LSU? When they play Auburn? What about Alabama? Like, what do you think is going to happen to Austin now? He's going to turn into roadkill. He's going to become one with the turf. They're going to call it Allen turf instead of AstroTurf. You score 7 points against TCU at home? I don't know, man. This team has gone from a 6-6, possibly even 8-4 team to me, to a 3-9 or a 4-8. Easily. Easily. All the SEC games to me are losses now. Even Ole Miss. Even Ole Miss. The past 3 games, Arkansas has played against FBS opponents. Missouri last year, bowl game against Virginia Tech, then this TCU game. The Hogs haven't scored in the second half at all. Goose egg in the second half at all. No points. I'm tired, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm amazed, all at the same time at how horrible this team is. They're horrible. And it's going to be another horrible year. So, get ready, the rest of you Arkansas fans out there. We're going to lose 1,000,000-0 to the bye week. Week 4, we play Texas A&M, and how they struggled against Nichols. The Southwest Classic is going to be like throwing a flaming bag of dog crap onto a pile of hot garbage. Either Sumlin or Bielema won't be coaching next year, you mark my words. And we're going to know everything we need to know about this team and about Brett Bielema at that A&M game. If they come out flat, he's lost control of the team. If they come out fired up, ready to go, then maybe there's something else left, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm off the Bielema train. I'm off. I need improvement. I need production. I need wins. I mean, yeah, our guys don't get in trouble. They have a high GPA. That's all important, but you have to. Sometimes it has to go right on the field, as well as off the field. And I'm done. I'm over it. I'm completely over Brett Bielema. We're done.
Wow. Well, that was moving. We got a big, hot, steaming can full of garbage in here after that.
Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. We can move on to an East game. That's all I have to say.
Was that cathartic? Did it feel cathartic?
I just kind of feel more angry now. I felt pretty good going into it, and I don't know. I feel all right.
It definitely started at a point of just, getting through it, and then it started to fester, and then it started to grow, and then it was white hot by the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you shared it. I'm sure a lot of Arkansas fans sympathize. After hearing that, I mean, I'm convinced. But if I wasn't already after watching the game.
Yeah, that's the only thing you need to convince you right there.
Well, over to the East, I am just going to quickly run through this Florida scenario. Obviously, the game was canceled against Northern Colorado due to Hurricane Irma, and complications with that.
Yeah, and we hope everyone in Gainesville and around Florida was able to stay safe.
Absolutely,
we
Florida
hope that,
all the way up through the middle of Georgia.
Absolutely.
We hope everybody is safe. Ended up in a safe place. Stuff can be replaced, but lives can't, and we hope everyone's safe and whatnot with that. But just as far as implications, personally, I think it's kind of, it's rough for Florida on all sides. They are going into Tennessee next week without a win, without much momentum. The QB situation doesn't get a chance to develop. I'm told Felipe Franks is going to be starting. But it would have been nice for him to have a shot to play against Northern Colorado and put up some numbers. Still, as far as we know, unclear as far as the suspensions go. The last depth chart I saw, Jordan Scarlett and Antonio Callaway weren't on it. Not really sure about the other guys. But just as far as that game goes, I'm taking UT next week. They definitely made some mistakes against Idaho State, which I'll get into, even though it was a huge blowout. But I'm taking UT.
Indiana State, right?
Was it Indiana?
I think it was Indiana State. But anyways.
Good gracious.
We'll figure that out.
I'm really curious. But I'm taking UT in the Swamp, which I know is a big it was Indiana State. What am I thinking? Indiana, Idaho. Different places.
No disrespect to you if you're from Indiana or Idaho and you don't like the other state, but if you're listening to this podcast, an SEC podcast, and you're from Indiana or Ohio or Idaho, I'm sorry, thank you very much.
If you're in Idaho, hey, power to you.
If you're in Idaho, man, great job being in Idaho.
Write us in. If we ever make T-shirts, we'll send you one.
We'll send you one for completely free.
Anyway, Indiana State. But regardless, I'm taking UT next weekend in the Swamp. Based on what we've seen, I think UT is going to do more on offense, and I'll get into their situation in a bit. But I'm taking them 18-13 in the Swamp next week. Back over to the West, if you're ready.
And you heard it here. That's a hot take in its own right, taking UT in the Swamp.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those, it's so early in the year, every year, that it's almost like this underrated rivalry, but it's always just an insane game. But I have no reason to believe in Florida's offense, especially if Jordan Scarlett's not on the field. I have some reasons to believe in Tennessee.
We've seen it.
We've seen them beat a good team.
Yeah.
But I do think Florida's defense has a pretty clear edge. But again, we've only seen Tennessee go up against a blowout team and the option for 4 quarters. So we'll see what happens. All
right. Well, we'll move back to the West then. Not a lot to say about this game other than just still very impressed with Ole Miss. Ole Miss beats UT Martin 45-23. The passing attack was just too much for the UT Martin defense to handle, and it might be a lot for many teams to handle. They look a lot better than I expected.
Yeah, they look legit.
Yeah, Shea Patterson gives another great offensive performance. He went 32 of 43 for 489 yards and 5 touchdowns while only throwing 1 interception. That's great. Got a good receiving core, too. Another receiver's risen to join A.J. Brown as a top target. DeMarcus Lodge had 6 receptions for 133 yards and a touchdown. And Brown and Lodge combined for 14 catches and 289 yards. 3 touchdowns between them.
Gotta love these blowouts.
Yeah, no kidding, right? The Landshark defense played all right. They recorded just 1 sack, but they had 8 total tackles for loss, which is good. They held the Skyhawk passing attack to just 117 yards. The run defense is where it's really going to hurt, though. UT Martin running back Ladarius Galloway was able to rack up 188 yards on the ground in just 24 carries.
That's not okay.
That's not against a team like that. They're going to need to work that out before they get to teams like Alabama. DeMarcus Gates and Marquise Haynes recorded 5 solo tackles and 3 solo tackles, respectively. They had a good day. As far as next week goes, the Rebels are going to travel west to take on Cal in a rare SEC Pac-12 matchup. It's going to be pretty good.
That's going to be fun.
I'm excited for that game, genuinely. It's just 2 teams that are never in the same galaxies usually. Yeah. And when they come together like that, it's always good usually.
Shout out with Cal, a kid that went to my high school, actually. High school of like 200 people. His name is Demetrius Robertson. He transferred like midway through, but he plays for Cal, and he went to my high school.
Nice.
We didn't talk much, but we're a couple of years apart, but pretty cool.
So he'll supposedly play Saturday, right?
Yeah, he broke. It's crazy. He broke Deshaun Jackson's freshman receiving record at Cal last year. So
Wow, we have so many connections in this podcast.
weirdly,
With the Vanderbilt guy and then now
Dare
this.
Odeyingbo. Yeah, I'm talking about him a little later.
Nice, very cool. Well, the Golden Bears, they recently gave up 400 plus yards in the air to Weber State. So with Ole Miss coming to town, it should mean certain doom for the defense of Cal. So Ole Miss ought to have a field day throwing the ball against them. I'm going to call Ole Miss beating out Cal in Berkeley 41-35.
All right. Yeah, I can't wait to watch. I love watching Shea Patterson.
Yeah, Shea Patterson. He is, man, when I said he looked like Johnny Manziel, every Saturday he just shows it, man.
Absolutely.
He's got speed. He's got the arm. He's kind of shorter, or real like compact guy.
Right.
Can kind of slip around in the pocket. He's
Yeah.
very good. Excited to watch his career at Ole Miss.
Right on. That'll be a fun game. Well, I'll move into, going off what I was just talking about, Tennessee, Indiana State falls 42-7. Huge blowout. I mean, UT ran the opening kickoff back 91 yards to the house. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Definitely a much-needed break for the Vols after last week against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, cutting it kind of close against Georgia Tech. It's
Right.
nice to blow somebody out at home, especially.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I do just want to talk about Marquez Callaway. I mean, I think every time the dude touches the ball, he scores. He went 1 for 37 on a touchdown. Crazy. Some solid punt returns. Dude just has moves. It was a huge bummer seeing Jawan Jennings be basically out indefinitely. Quinn Dormady, solid. 13 for 18, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Don't really want to see him throw a pick against Indiana State. He fumbled twice. He lost one. They just got to tighten up. But, they made no mistakes against Georgia Tech, and then they come out. I won't say no mistakes, but they were rock solid. They didn't turn the ball over from what I remember. And to see him come out and make some of those mistakes, I get it. They're probably trying some stuff. They can afford that against Indiana State.
Yeah, maybe playing a little bit looser, too.
Right.
Maybe not so tight.
Definitely trying to just, but, he didn't throw the ball a lot. Definitely was a lot of rushing. John Kelly went 18 for 80, 5 for 60 receiving, though. Carlin Filzame, I think I'm saying that right.
Filzame?
Yeah. He went 3 for 41 with 2 touchdowns. Kind of cool to see some running back depth. We definitely thought that would be an issue. Defense, finally got that front seven kind of came alive. They were just getting eaten up, as I talked about last week. But, they registered a sack, 11 tackles for loss. Pretty good. Again, I think they're going to do enough to beat Florida in the Swamp. 18-13, again, is what I'm calling. I just think that game is going to be entertaining. It's going to be messy. It's going to be crazy. We'll just see what happens, man. I mean, if you're a Vol fan or a Florida fan, I don't really know what you'd be thinking one way or another, but I just know it's going to be a crazy game.
Yeah, and write us in and let us know your thoughts. I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you have right to feel a little confidence. Like you said.
I agree. They've won a big game in a major way. They've definitely had more of a chance to see what they're made of. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's going to be just really entertaining.
Yeah, and with the first game of the season being a neutral site game, I guess it is a road game kind of, but it's a road game for both teams.
Sure,
this is a real good SEC road test for them.
No kidding.
Good to see.
That's a good point. Yeah. We don't really know what they're. Well, yeah, and I mean the Swamp is just another place altogether.
The Swamp is just another monster. Absolutely.
We will see how it goes, but hoping for good weather down there and a good game.
Absolutely.
Back to the West.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Crimson Tide for a little bit.
Why not?
Why not? They played Fresno State in Tuscaloosa and had no problems. Beat them 41-10. Jalen Hurts decided to go ahead and show out in this game. He was responsible for 282 yards of total offense, and he actually had a career high 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground, which again is a career high for him, right?
That is crazy.
And passing, he didn't do too shabby either. He went 14 of 18 passing for 128 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, you name it, he could do it.
Right.
Yeah, Najee Harris, Bo Scarborough, and Damian Harris, the actual running backs, combined for 138 yards on the ground, which is less than Hurts alone. So he balled out.
Okay,
that's for sure. He didn't really feel the need to spend too much time giving the ball to anybody else.
No way.
Really exciting, actually. We got to see a little bit of the freshman QB from Hawaii, Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa, I believe is how you say it. Tagovailoa, yeah.
Sounds pretty good.
It was in garbage time, so they're going to let him get a little bit of playing time in. He went 6 of 9 for 64 yards and a touchdown. That's not bad for a freshman quarterback.
It's always interesting to see their backups play because it's like, well, there's the next guy that's going to be mowing everybody down.
Absolutely, absolutely. If he hangs out, theoretically Jalen will be gone by his junior year.
So will he stick around?
And so Tua Tagovailoa will be there by his junior year, theoretically, unless he decides to transfer out because he doesn't get any time. But
that'd be fun.
Yeah. Like to see him go to Auburn. I don't know if you can transfer in the same conference, but yeah,
I don't know how any of that works.
I don't know either.
We should look into
it. Yeah. He looks great though too. It was kind of an off day for the Alabama secondary though. They allowed 216 yards through the air for Fresno State. Which is kind of a weird performance for this secondary, right?
They have had some injuries, haven't they?
Have they?
I'll look into it while you're talking about it.
Well, Minka played. Tony Brown played, which is weird for even if those two guys are there. That's a weird performance. Mm-hmm. Kept them from scoring, so allowed just a single touchdown. It's that bend but don't break mentality. Is that good enough for Saban, though? He runs a pretty tight ship. I guess the points are what matters. But
I'm sure it was addressed. I'm just
sure.
Say that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure. The Alabama special teams allowed 127 return yards, which is weak again for a usually great Alabama special teams unit. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they were sleeping because of the opponent or what, but kind of strange there. They face Colorado State in Tuscaloosa next week. They ought to continue to roll.
Why even play that game?
Ought to have no problems against the Rams next week. Probably similar score. I'm taking them 40-10 over Colorado State.
Sounds good. The injuries, it's Rashaan Evans and Anthony Jennings. They're both linebackers, and then linebacker Dylan Moses has an injury as well. Saban says he's not really sure if they're going to play Saturday. I doubt he'll push them, but
probably
I think that
not against Colorado State. He won't.
Thin linebacker core is something to keep an eye on. So that might have
caused some issues on special teams.
And plus, they're already out Reuben Foster, so you figured that might be that makes sense. That definitely
it's the passing numbers that Fresno State got that kind of boggles my mind.
Right? Like why would that?
Yeah, how can an Alabama secondary, especially this one with those players on it, allow something like that?
No joke.
Anyways, so yeah, we'll be looking forward to that game on Saturday. Again, Crimson Tide ought to have no problem.
Sure. All right, well, on to another blowout. Vanderbilt beating Alabama A&M 42-0. First of all, this is Derek Mason's first shutout as Vandy head coach.
Congrats, Derek Mason.
Gotta love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Just a blowout again. It's fun to, and I'm not. This is not. This is me, being sort of celebrative of Vanderbilt, but it's fun to see them just kind of rolling for a couple weeks, Yeah. It's good to see they're talented. Shermer looked good again, 15 for 18, 202 yards and 4 touchdowns. The run game's good. Ralph Webb, 13 for 54 and a touchdown. We got plenty of looks from the backups. Jamari Wakefield and Curry Blasingame was pretty good. They didn't turn the ball over or fumble at all. They allowed 0 sacks, only 3 tackles for loss. Derek Mason, it looks like I think that's what you can take from these blowout games is if like you were talking about with Saban, wanting to run a tight ship and keep things locked up, to see them come out and just keep it really locked in, really clean the whole game. They had 2 interceptions on defense, 3 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. They're disruptive up there. Like I said, my boy Dare had another half sack. I'm taking them over Kansas State next week. I'm saying they put up a good number of points. I'm saying 30-19 is the final. They're going to be at home. That neither team has played anybody substantial yet. But I just think that if Vandy keeps it clean and they don't turn the ball over, I think they can put up points next week. I think Shermer's going to be dialed in. I think it's going to be fun. I just can't wait to see them play, really play somebody.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's just good to see a Derek Mason coach team being disciplined, and it's good to see just Vanderbilt having success.
Oh, no joke.
Even if it's against these opponents, it's just good to see them start out 2-0.
Yeah, nothing wrong with seeing a good coach make a good team
Absolutely.
play well. We'll see how they hold up against some competition, and then the heavy stretch starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Arkansas, after they let the conference down against the Big 12, hopefully Vandy can play Avenger in that role, take home a Big 12 victory. That would be definitely good.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, well, let's move on back to the West then. Yeah, let's talk about another team that is just in the dumps right now, man. Mm-hmm. Texas A&M.
What is going on?
Looking at you, Aggies. What is going on down there? Y'all are joining the likes of Arkansas in the SEC West dumpster fire right now, which again is going to make the Southwest Classic a. They ought to call it the Job Security Bowl.
Hot seat classic.
Hot seat classic, absolutely. Yeah, Kellen Mond at quarterback he's just not very good. 12 of 21 for 105 yards and a TD against Nichols.
What are you doing?
Not very good. Jake Hubenack played for a little while. He looked marginally better for the short time that he played. 12 of 15 for 93 yards. I mean, that's
efficient.
All right. And, from a couple of insider Aggies that I know, apparently some trouble between Jake Hubenack and Kevin Sumlin. A lot of discord there.
Really?
And I think he maybe put Jake Hubenack in as like a desperation time. Maybe like you've got the experience, try to go score us a touchdown in the fourth quarter.
Just let him play, man.
If he's the better quarterback, you got to let him play.
I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, Christian Kirk continues to be just the guy, the go-to guy on this offense. He had 119 all-purpose yards on 6 receptions, 1 carry, and 2 returns.
That'll do it.
Need to get the ball in his hands way more often. Third string back, Kendall Busey led the team in rushing yards. Busey carried the ball 15 times for 97 yards. I don't know where Travion Williams was in this game. Maybe he just couldn't get it going, but anyways. Middle linebacker Tyrell Dodson and defensive back Armani Watts both came through big for the defense. Dodson recorded 3 solo tackles, a sack, and a pick, and Watts had 6 tackles, 1 for loss, and forced a fumble. So those are a couple big key players, and they needed those plays.
Absolutely.
They needed those plays.
That is the difference right there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That'll show a lot more of the same against Louisiana Lafayette. They play them next week. The Raging Cajuns will keep it pretty close, I think. But the Aggies should come out on top, probably to the tune of like 30-23.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, I mean, Nichols has given people problems in the past, haven't they? I remember Georgia had a pretty lackluster game against them, I believe.
Maybe.
Anyway, who knows?
Who knows? But, yeah. Whatever it is that's going on, I mean, the whole thing, and again, I mean, all the cloud just surrounding the program right now with all the racist hate mail Kevin Sumlin's been getting and the death threats after UCLA. I mean, that's I mean, I'm angry.
Sure.
I'm angry at Arkansas and I'm angry at Brett Bielema, but I don't want anybody to die.
No.
That's a little too extreme. Maybe guys down there in College Station, maybe just kind of sit back, take a cool drink of water, maybe take a deep breath. Yeah, I don't know, but whatever it is that's going down there, it needs to shape up.
And I will say, yeah, Georgia only beat Nichols by 2 points last year, 26-24. So maybe Nichols,
bad. Maybe I'm totally taking this the wrong way, and maybe Nichols is just better.
Maybe they're not that bad.
Anyway.
Anyway.
All right, well, we'll move back to the East.
Okay, this was a very similar game. Kentucky beating out Eastern Kentucky 27-16. After they scored that go-ahead touchdown to make it 7-3 in the first quarter, Eastern Kentucky led until the third quarter, and I really just think that the only reason they didn't win is because they ran out of steam. But it was a pretty slow start, a lot of early mistakes. Kentucky had a leaping penalty on a punt that set up the Eastern Kentucky touchdown. There was a bad snap to Benny Snell and Wildcat on 4th down, and it's just kind of out of sync. Kentucky looked, there just wasn't anything really happening. It was cool to see some big plays. Steven Johnson definitely looked sharper. He definitely outplayed Drew Barker, which I was like, oh my gosh, are we really going to see a quarterback competition here? But he had a great touchdown pass to C.J. Conrad. The touch looked nice. He went 15 for 22 for 224 and a touchdown, 6 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So, I mean, I think him as a dual threat is the key to this team being good. It was nice to see Benny Snell rebound and go 19 for 103 yards and a touchdown. Defense chipped in. They had a pick and a nice fumble recovery. The offensive line allowed 3 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. Definitely pretty weak. Especially playing against Eastern Kentucky. But, they played way better in the second half than in the first half. The game was super lopsided. First half was super slow. The second half, things picked up. It seemed good, but I just don't see this team holding up against SEC teams, especially for 4 quarters, and especially if they start that slow. I just don't see any way they get it done against South Carolina's defense in Columbia next week. I think they lose to the Gamecocks 28-10.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with you on that, especially after South Carolina's had that SEC game already.
You're right.
They've got that primed and out of their system, and now they're ready to go. Yeah, you perform like that against Eastern Kentucky, which no offense to Eastern Kentucky, but it's not going to fare well for you against a South Carolina team that is playing way hotter.
Oh,
than
yeah.
I think
They're
anybody
red
expected
hot.
them to.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe Mark Stoops has some kind of stuff up his sleeve, but I just think that South Carolina is a solid, good football team, which we're going to get to later.
Absolutely.
But yeah, definitely calling the Gamecocks in that one.
All right. Well, making our way back to the west side, LSU played their first night game of the year in Death Valley.
Woo!
Yeah, they love their night games down there.
Man, it's fun. There's something about it.
Yeah, it sure is
Even
voodoo, isn't
even
it?
in a smaller game, yeah, it's crazy.
It's rocking. They beat out UT Chattanooga 45-10.
Shocker.
Which everyone was on the edge of their seat during that one. LSU did. They recorded a really balanced offensive day, which was something I wasn't expecting to see from this offense. Danny Etling seems to be showing a lot of improvement from 2016. He went 8 of 14 for 227 yards and a touchdown. He could get that completion rate up, but nonetheless, that's a lot better than last year. Geis performed great as well. He went 15 carries for 102 yards.
Solid.
The receiving core, DJ Chark has definitely solidified himself as Etling's top target for me. He caught the ball just 3 times for 103 yards.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's playmaker status.
Yeah, and more surprising still is the long game within this passing attack. Like, not only are they throwing the ball well, they're just racking up chunk yards, man. 5 individual receivers caught the ball against Chattanooga. And Sullivan, Davis, and Stevens only had 1 reception each, but recorded a combined total of 109 yards between them. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that's like an average of what? Like almost 40 yards?
Right.
A
Big
reception?
plays.
Yeah, big plays.
We thought, I wondered how the big plays would translate with Ogeron coming in, but it looks like they're just as fast, just as good, just as strong as ever.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting anything big from this passing attack. But maybe that's just Matt Canada.
Yeah,
he did it. He did a great job at Pitt. Maybe he's just really, really starting to roll with that.
That's
that
a
offense.
good point. I think it fits.
It looks like he's shaping him up, especially with what he can do with Etling. Man, he's a better quarterback this year. The front 7 wreaked havoc against Chattanooga. They had 5 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. All these things are good. Right? But the Tigers, they could have played more disciplined. LSU got 11 penalties for 74 yards.
Not good.
Which can really hurt you against way better teams than Chattanooga, which they're going to have to play. They're going to travel to Starkville next week for their SEC opener to take on Mississippi State next week. That ought to be a great conference opener for both teams.
Fantastic.
But ultimately, the Tigers' depth, especially on defense, they ought to be able to get the job done against Nick Fitzgerald and the Bulldog offense. I'm taking LSU 24-17.
All right. Well, let me get your way too early take on the first week in November. You think this team beats Alabama and Tuscaloosa?
Wow, yeah, that's a way too early.
Way too early.
Well, let's think about it. LSU has played BYU. They shut them out.
Yep.
They played UT Chattanooga, and they let them score 10 points.
Probably with some third stringers.
Probably with some, garbage time.
I don't know what the box look like, but
no,
anyway.
I think their 10 points came entirely in the
Oh
fourth
yeah,
quarter.
they got 7 in the fourth, and
Yep,
they had
yep.
3 in the first. But yeah, right.
I'm thinking that's probably some third string guys. Alabama has played Florida State, beat them handily
Handily is
in
the
a
word.
in a large NFL stadium, completely full
Brand new.
on primetime television. And then they crushed Fresno State the next week. Right now, I'm definitely picking Alabama.
I think
Right now, the metrics are there. The eye test is there. In quarterback play again, like quarterback play in big games like LSU, Alabama, that is always the deciding factor.
You're right.
And if you're taking Danny Etling versus Jalen Hurts, there's no contest for me. It's Jalen Hurts, man.
Yeah, he's gonna rebound from the mistakes.
He's gonna perform.
He's gonna handle the adversity. Yeah, I think you're right.
He's a machine.
I was just so curious.
No, it's good. I'm glad. What about you?
Well, I agree with you. I think that I'll say I agree with you, but I think my mind is changeable on that. I think obviously, like I said, that's the fun of way too early. Is we'll see how if they come out and just blow Mississippi State out next week or something like that. I'll start thinking about it. Then they got Syracuse and Troy, and then we'll see how they do in that big SEC stretch. But they are playing Alabama the second road game in a row after Ole Miss, so it'll be tough. But anyway, it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things can happen between now and the first week in
Just
November.
about anything.
Just about anything.
Speaking of things happening, I don't know.
Speaking of things happening.
Let's try that. Back over to a super interesting, entertaining game and storyline in South Carolina going over Missouri 31-10. Man, South Carolina looks good.
Yeah, South Carolina. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Yeah, they look really good. They look it's a lot better than I personally expected them to look. And
Yeah.
I'm sure. I've already seen the ESPN pundits calling them the East sleeper.
Oh, yeah, which I'm 100%
Yeah.
on board with that. I mean, I completely believe that. I mean, I had Missouri winning this game.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to win. I thought the offense looked good. I thought they were just going to overpower them. I thought NC State did enough on offense against South Carolina to prove that. But, man, it was crazy. It was crazy. Anyway, let's get into the actual game. The Battle of Columbia, as it is called, as both schools, weirdly enough, are both in cities called Columbia. Never knew that. Debo Samuel, I mean, that's the guy. If you're talking about South Carolina's offense, he ran another kickoff back. It looked like identical to the one in week 1. They were down 10-0 at the time. It definitely was a big momentum swing. He scored later on a jet sweep. The guy is just versatile. He can do just about anything. South Carolina's offense, Jake Bentley looked solid. He looked fine. 18 for 28, 187 yards and a touchdown. Running game, Tyson Williams and Rico Dowdle split carries. 14 for 78 for Williams, 14 for 48 for Dowdle. They did enough. The cool thing was 6'5", 250-pound receiver Hayden Hurst scoring on a jet sweep. Unreal.
6'5", 250-pound wide receiver. And he scored.
Oh, yeah, and he
scored.
had a receiving touchdown.
Yeah.
That guy is a weapon. It's just interesting to see. I feel like we've been, obviously Connor Shaw, did his stuff and was good, but it's just crazy seeing, Muschamp pull out some interesting plays, use some players in different ways. I mean, the offense looked good. They looked dynamic. They looked fun. The defense is solid, especially the secondary. That second quarter pick by James Williams was just going towards the sideline, and I was like, no way he picks that ball off. Unbelievable athleticism on defense. Bryson Allen Williams also had a great pick. Missouri's offense, they just turned the ball over. Locke threw 2 picks. He went 14 for 32 for 245 yards, a touchdown, and those 2 picks. They just tried to air it out like they do, but they just couldn't do it against South Carolina's secondary. They lost a fumble from Jonathan Johnson. They forced 0 turnovers. They did force a fumble, but again, it just came down to the turnovers, and it just let South Carolina, get the lead and keep it. They ran the ball effectively. Missouri did. Damaria Crockett, 18 for 97, and Ish Witter, 12 for 72. I think that could be a problem for South Carolina down the road. But, both offensive lines played great, so, what can you really do? But just one Missouri receiving touchdown from Jason Reese, who went 2 for 88 and a touchdown.
That's a big surprise.
Yeah. The receivers were massively held in check. I was talking about, praising Jamon Moore last week. He went 3 for 29. South Carolina, Muschamp had a good game plan. They came in, they executed. They did it right.
Yeah.
And
when your defense plays like that, your offense can kind of do whatever it wants.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And when you're scoring, when you have the special teams touchdown, when you get a couple of flat, it was pretty much touchdown wise, it was pretty much just Debo and Hurst. That was pretty much it. But they I will say, as far as front sevens go, both sides were pretty quiet. Missouri had a sack, 4 tackles for loss. South Carolina had 1 sack and 2 tackles for loss. They just did enough. They did enough. The secondary and it makes sense, against, you're always thinking threat of the pass against this Missouri offense. But I think South Carolina should handle Kentucky easily next week at home. easily for an SEC game, I would
absolutely.
say. I think maybe it starts out close, and then I think South Carolina runs away with it. I think it's going to be a 28-10 final. Missouri could have a really close one against Purdue next week. I think that could be very similar to the Louisville game that Purdue dropped in week 1. I think they get the edge at home and win 28-24. I think they kind of get back on track because, like I said, Missouri's not a bad team. I did not expect them to lose this game. I definitely thought it was within the realm of possibility, but I figured it would be more of a contest. But South Carolina was in the driver's seat, so that's what I'm thinking. But
it sounds to me like, going back to what you said, just looking at this box score and kind of looking at these stats. To me, it just seems like the perfect storm of Missouri coming in there wanting to throw the ball, and South Carolina coming in there with a real stout secondary,
and knowing they're going to throw
throw the ball.
And locking them.
It kind of just seems like that kind of perfect storm of just interception city, really.
Absolutely, yeah. South Carolina look good. Like we talked about them being the sleeper in the East. I think not for long. I think for the time being, maybe, but I think they're already making their case for a strong contender. So
absolutely,
we will see if it's really what it's made of next week against Kentucky.
All right. Well, swinging it back over to the West, the Bulldogs played the Bulldogs.
Love it.
Yeah, no. Mississippi State trounced Louisiana Tech 57-21. Yeah, I was really wrong about Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, you were.
I was dead wrong, or maybe I was right about Mississippi State. I was either one. I'll take. You know what? I'll just take the. I'll take the L. I was wrong about Louisiana Tech. Very wrong. This is the first time in my life I've ever seen a botched snap result in a loss of 87 yards.
Yeah, that was insanity.
Yeah, if you wanna go check our Twitter, it's at askthebottle. We have a video of it up on there. It's really insane to go watch it. There's a version out there with the what's that, wacky sacks.
Oh yeah, yakety sacks. Yeah.
There's a version of it with that on there, which is awesome.
They just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, well, Louisiana Tech, they were knocking on the door and they were about to score when the snap just goes wild and dudes just chased the ball all the way back to the opposing 9-yard line. It was really fun. But anyways, let's talk about the real football.
Sure.
After starting a little bit shaky and throwing a pick, Fitzgerald, he shaped up real quick and threw a decent ball game after that. He went 12 for 18 for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns. Good performance from him. But really the story of the offense for Mississippi State was the run game. Fitzgerald and Eris Williams combined for 218 yards on 21 carries, and the team racked up 327 combined rushing yards. Which, I mean, you got to get it done how you get it done.
Oh, yeah.
The Louisiana Tech offense I bragged on, really pretty good last week. They had no answer for Mississippi State, especially on defense. The Bulldogs had 4 sacks. Well, the Mississippi State, the purple Bulldogs, the maroon and white Bulldogs, had 4 sacks and 6 tackles for loss. So, great performance from them all around. Mississippi State has to play a smoking hot LSU team at home next week.
Yeah.
And, while I take the Tigers over the Bulldogs earlier, I'm sure Mullen has a few Fitzgerald tricks up his sleeve.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, you could make the case for Mississippi State being pretty hot, too. I mean, I think this is going to be like 2 just, steaming trains going right at each other, and one's just going to overpower the other.
Yeah, I think so. I think this will be a more exciting LSU Mississippi State game than we've seen in the past few years.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
At least not since the DAC years.
Oh, yeah.
At least.
Well, those are all exciting.
Every game they played was great back then.
All right.
Well, let's move back to the East then.
The last game in the East, Georgia Notre Dame. What a game!
I'm usually only able to watch a couple of games, maybe 3 if I'm lucky, all the way through. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I watched the dumpster fire that was the Arkansas game, but I got to watch this one too. This is my kind of football game.
Right here. Yeah. I mean, I was gonna open with it could be easy for me to be biased about Georgia and whatnot, and I definitely will spend all my time trying not to be on this podcast. But legitimately, unbiased, this was a good game.
Absolutely.
This was a fun game to watch. Certainly never any moment where I really felt like either one was going to win until it came down to it. Just an insane amount. I got to talk about the crazy amount of Georgia fans in South Bend. I mean, it looked like a home game.
Yeah, y'all are rich.
That was...
Y'all are rich because you packed that place out, man.
Oh,
the
yeah.
UGA chants.
I could hear them through my television like I was there.
So loud and proud.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely proud.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, certainly a rightful occasion for a bunch of Georgia fans to show up to a road game. This is the first time these teams have faced since the 1981 Sugar Bowl, where Georgia became national champions for the first time. The second time these teams have played ever. The first being that game. So
yeah, and it's kind of amazing when you really think about it. Like two teams with the storied pasts, like Notre Dame and UGA. It's kind of crazy that they've only played one time before this,
and it was in a title game. Yeah,
Well, that's one of the situations that you would expect them to play.
Right, and you would think it would have come up more anyway. I think these teams have been certainly just barely missing each other for a while now. It was great to see them play in the regular season. I want to start out talking about Jake Fromm.com, as I have cheesily nicknamed him. He went 16 for 29 for 141 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He had a pretty bad fumble. He should have just fallen on it. He tried to pick it up and keep the play alive. I think he has this weird combination of talent, overconfidence, and lack of experience. So we see him make some amazing plays. We see him do some things that kind of make me raise my eyebrows. I think he got saved by the Georgia receivers. I mean, Terry Godwin had some incredible receptions. That one where he came back towards an overthrown ball, which was placed well, I will say, given the situation. And on the sideline for deep gain, he had an amazing one-handed corner of the end zone catch.
Yeah, that's the catch. That's catch of the week, man. That's SEC top 10 material.
I mean, that is the difference.
Or I guess SC top 10, not SEC.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely got saved. He had some tough throws. He completely missed Isaac Nauta in the end zone on that game-winning field goal drive. But the offensive line played okay against a good defense. They allowed 2 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. I thought he had enough time. He definitely felt some pressure. I just think I think he's getting. I think we talked about before the podcast. He is a good. He's playing well for the situation. I mean, we shouldn't expect to see a polished player like what we were hoping for this year with Jacob Eason in his sophomore year. But for a guy who didn't expect to play, who came in as a surprise start week 1, I mean, he played solid. He won a big game on the road, and I really can't fault him past that
big
point.
game on the road. I mean, you could say that, but I mean, it's Notre Dame.
Yeah,
on
huge
the road.
game on
like
the road.
Really, I mean, you could say what you want about how Notre Dame plays. They played well in this game, and for a freshman quarterback in his first real true start,
No kidding.
I mean, that's a big stage.
To keep it together and to get through the mistakes. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, he deserves, definite credit for that. I think who also deserves credit are Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, who are just lethal. I mean, Chubb went 13 for 63. Again, he still just keeps looking faster, stronger, more dominant. Sony Michel, dynamic as ever, 13 for 73 and a touchdown. I love that they're doing this wild dog kind of thing where he'll get it and then he'll either hand it off or he'll they'll mess around with the reverse.
So far in 2 weeks of me watching Georgia football, nobody's had an answer for that yet.
Yeah, it's pretty nice to see Kirby Smart changing it up. This team reminds me a little bit of South Carolina, I will say. I think that Fromm and Bentley are different players, but I think that we got a strong defense. We got an offense who can definitely has some awesome playmakers, but isn't exactly burning barns on a weekly basis. But anyway, I think it'll be really interesting to watch those two teams progress as the year goes on. I think
could be the East game.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Like the big one,
Yeah, and I did want to touch on some great catches, like I said, by the Georgia receivers and Terry Godwin in particular, but no Georgia receiver had more than 36 yards. That was the peak. So you got to wonder, I mean, Notre Dame was physical. They looked fast. It was a very well-matched game, but, that's something to – I mean, like I've been saying, this is a rush-first team, and it shows in blowouts. It shows in close games. It shows in big games. But what I really want to talk about is the defense. I mean, they look good. They look really, really, really good. Lorenzo Carter had that crazy sack fumble and that amazing sack fumble to win the game. They stopped the run from Wimbush, which I was worried about last week. He was held to 16 carries for 1 yard.
Yeah.
He was forced to throw the ball, and they definitely brought a lot of heat. They had 3 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. They only allowed 55 yards on the ground in total. The front seven, just with Lorenzo Carter and David Bellamy and Trenton Thompson, who had a pretty quiet game, but he had a pretty solid week 1. I mean, those guys are a force, and it's fun to watch. They definitely held this Notre Dame offense in check for the most part. You think Brian Kelly might be on the hot seat, on his way out?
It's a hard yes.
Yeah.
Though especially the way that he treated the media after the game.
Oh, my gosh.
If you go back and watch some of that press conference.
Unbelievable.
Just completely cold, completely just, I don't know anything about the Notre Dame front office. I don't know anything about their administration or their books or anything. I don't have any numbers on his buyout. I don't know what his contract is.
Right.
But, oh, boy, the way they played last year and the way he's just being so just stuffy right now. It's really a bad look, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was out of South Bend by the end of this year.
Yeah, it's definitely not a guy you want as the face of your program, especially like we were talking about a program with such a rich history and who were in this game and could have definitely won it.
This was one team never stood out as in control.
Absolutely. I mean, it came down to a field goal. I mean, come on, it was a good game. The team played well. I just think that he has some issues. Yeah,
absolutely.
And anyway, Dogs should coast against also fellow Bulldogs, Samford, next week. 35-7 is what I'm calling it. I think it's just great. Any more experience that Jake Fromm can get. I just hope that the Bulldogs don't relish in the win too much and sleep a little hard next week. But even if they come out a little sluggish, I'm not worried about it. We should talk about how Samford has a rough schedule.
Yeah, were you talking about the Georgia Bulldogs or the Samford Bulldogs that were going to sleep?
Well, if Samford sleeps, then they might as well sleep.
Yeah, they might as well just stay in their beds.
But it'll be, I expect just a cupcake game next week. And we'll just kind of see what happens from there. Let me take a look at who Georgia. I should know this.
Well, and while you do that, I just wanted to mention real quick. Just very impressed at the Georgia front seven. Dual threat quarterbacks. They're called dual threat for a reason.
Yeah,
they could beat you either way. And just really impressed that they were able to contain the pocket. Like you said, Holden Wimbush just a 1 yard on the ground. I mean, that's a great job.
Yeah.
He could have easily beaten you all with his legs. So just wanted to give a huge shout out to them for being able to contain that pocket, keep him inside, and not let him get loose.
No kidding. They just looked strong, fast, fierce. But yeah, anyway, Samford next week should be fine. Then they're playing another Bulldog team in Mississippi State at home on September 23rd, which is going to be the next big one to look out for. I think if Mississippi State wins this week, that game is going to be insane.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
there needs to be less teams named the Bulldogs.
it's pretty.
We could use a few less Tigers.
Yeah,
a few less Bulldogs.
That is for sure. But yeah, that rounds out the East. As of now, as far as rankings go for the East teams, we got Georgia's 13 in the AP Top 25. We also have Tennessee at 23 and Florida at 24. So I'd expect South Carolina to break in to those rankings before too long. As far as the East goes, that's the only other team that I think is going to end up there, maybe at any point. Yeah. But that's what it's looking like in the East. It should be a fun weekend next week. We got a lot of big games. Anyway, we back to the West.
Yep, just one game left in the West, and if you haven't had enough of the same mascot playing each other, how about the Tigers and the Tigers?
Why not?
Why not? Auburn took a trip to Clemson and couldn't come away with a win. The Clemson Tigers beat the Auburn Tigers 14-6 in Clemson. And, this being the big marquee game of the week, especially in the West, or at least one of the big marquee games, I was able to lock it in on that one and watch a little bit of it. Auburn went into Clemson seeking a revenge win from last year's game, but they couldn't quite get it done.
Nope.
Brent Venables and the Clemson defensive line, they just owned this game.
Yeah.
Stidham was dropped a whopping 11 times. That's a lot of time to be on the ground. And when you're on the ground, your offense can't really get anything going.
No.
He was 13 of 24 for an abysmal 79 yards.
Man.
That's not going to do it against this defense. The run game was even worse, surprisingly. Cameron Petway, on his return from suspension, had to do all the work by himself, and that work amounted to a measly 74 yards on 22 carries. So really, just no room to run, no room to throw. Early on, the Clemson offense looked just as bad, actually. Kelly Bryant went down momentarily with a minor injury, but he ended up coming back into the game and scoring before halftime, giving Clemson the lead 7-6 over Auburn. And in the second half, Bryan came back out and immediately scored again, putting Clemson up 14-6, where the score would stay. Clemson got it done with 185 yards in the air, which is not bad for a freshman QB. But again, this was all Clemson's defense. After the second touchdown, they clamped down even harder, and Auburn really never even threatened to score in the second half.
Not at all.
Just never even really got close. Not even really. They didn't even think they made a red zone trip in the second half.
Yeah, I don't even know, man. I don't know whether to think, wow, maybe Clemson is still the real deal, even after last year, even after losing Mike Williams and losing Deshaun Watson, or are we just seeing this anemic? I mean, I don't know.
Well, that was actually what I was going to ask you. Actually, is to me, this doesn't mean Auburn is necessarily a bad team.
No. To
me, this is really just showing Clemson is really good.
As being able to bounce back well.
Especially on defense.
Definitely, yeah.
All this showed me was that Clemson still has it. And after DeAndre Francois went down at Florida State, could easily be the ACC pick again for the playoff, at least as it stands right now. So, that was my take from the game. And Auburn's bright spot on the day really was their defense held Clemson to just 285 yards and 14 points.
Yeah, and I mean, this ended as a one-score game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it was a blowout.
No.
It just was a tough game where the offense just could not get it done.
Yeah, and actually, that is their worst offensive performance since the pre-Watson days in 2014.
Really?
For Clemson, yeah.
Wow.
So that's something to say about Auburn's defense, which we knew was going to be stout. So it's something to say for them. Auburn's going to head back home to the Plains to play Mercer next week, which ought to be an easy win.
Yeah.
And that'll leave the Tigers 2-1 when they go back on the road to play Missouri in their SEC opener.
That'll be an interesting game.
That will be an interesting game.
I wonder, it'll be interesting to see where those two teams are at that point. And I'd like to point out, this loss to Clemson, only dropped Auburn from 13th to 15th. So it is by no means, over for Auburn.
Yeah, that's the AP, right?
Yeah, that's the AP.
Yeah, so there's obviously no committee poll out yet. But to drop just 2 points, I mean, that to me, again, speaks to Clemson. Still really good.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other people see it that way as well. And I think Auburn ought to be able to take care of Missouri. Even though it's a road game, the defense is playing lights out. I just don't think Missouri's got it.
Yeah.
Going to be able to beat Auburn.
No. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, it was an exciting week 2. We're even more excited for week 3. I don't know about you, but
I'm very excited for week 3.
We're starting to get into
starting
the
to
swing
kind of
of
get
it.
Yep. The wheels are kind of starting to go. We're kind of starting to get some more SEC games. Not that we don't love out of conference games.
Oh,
those
no.
can always be exciting, but just ready to get into conference play, man.
Yeah, I mean that's when it becomes fun for us to talk about SEC implications, which is why we're here.
Absolutely, and it's always fun for me to just sit and blab about football. I know it is for you as well,
100%.
But it always just makes it better when you've got conference on conference. You can really start to weed out who's good and who's not, and you don't have to all this guesswork,
right,
and all that kind of stuff.
Right, no more blowouts. Well,
absolutely,
maybe a couple.
There's going to be a couple of blowouts, especially if you're playing Arkansas. On that note, make sure to write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com. That's askthebottlecast@gmail.com.
And tweet at us.
Yeah, tweet at us too. Please follow us on Twitter at askthebottle. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes, on SoundCloud. Go on there, type in Ask the Bottle in the search bar. There we will be. Look for the little white football helmet.
Yep.
My name is Clint Childers.
I'm Mitch Davis.
The Georgia Peach.
You know it.
You know it. And you have been listening to Ask the Bottle, an SEC Fancast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank y'all. Have a good one.